The city of Greenstone was known for its tall glass buildings and shining streets. People walked fast with busy faces, and cars never seemed to stop. In the middle of the city lived a man named Mr. Adrian. He was one of the richest men in the country, a man who owned tall towers, factories, and ships that sailed across the sea. Everyone in Greenstone knew his name. He was called the Millionaire, but no one dared to speak to him. Adrian was always seen in his black car with dark windows. He walked with guards around him when he visited his office. His face was calm, but cold. People respected him, but they also feared him. Workers bowed their heads when he passed. Neighbors kept their distance, and even important people in the city spoke to him carefully. For years, he had lived like a shadow among crowds. Everyone wanted to be near his success, but no one wanted to disturb his silence. The truth was, Mr. Adrian had chosen this life. He had grown from nothing, struggling in his young days. His father was a poor man who worked in mines, and his mother washed clothes to feed the family. Adrian had once been a boy who dreamed of wealth. When he finally reached the top, he promised himself never to let anyone use him or trick him. So he built walls around his heart. He trusted no one. Every morning, his car stopped in front of the tallest tower in Greenstone, a building called Silver Heights. It was his own building, shining like a mirror under the sun. At the bottom of the tower, cleaners swept the glass doors, polished the floors, and carried buckets. Among them was a man named Daniel, who worked quietly to keep the lobby shining. Daniel was an old cleaner with tired hands, but he carried his duty with pride. Daniel had a daughter, a little girl named Anna. She was only 7 years old. Full of energy and curiosity, she had brown eyes that sparkled when she smiled and a voice that was always cheerful. Anna often waited for her father in the lobby after school, sitting near a corner with her small school bag. The building workers liked her because she always greeted them with a sweet hello. One morning, Anna saw something that caught her attention. The black car stopped, and the guards opened the door. Out stepped a man everyone whispered about, Mr. Adrian, and his eyes widened. She had heard people say the millionaire was untouchable, too proud, too serious. But to her, he looked just like a lonely man in a black suit. His steps were strong, but his eyes seemed heavy, like he carried something inside. She tugged her father's arm. Papa, is that the rich man you told me about? Daniel quickly pulled her hand down. Shh, Anna, don't speak too loud. He does not like people talking to him. But Anna was different from everyone else. She did not understand why people feared a man who had two hands, two eyes, and a face like anyone else. To her, silence was not strength but sadness. She watched Mr. Adrian walk into the elevator with his guards, and she wondered why no one smiled at him. The next day, she carried something in her small hand. It was a red lollipop wrapped in shiny paper. She had saved it from her school lunch. As she sat waiting for her father again, she saw the black car arrive. Mr. Adrian stepped out, the same cold face, the same heavy walk. People bowed their heads, not daring to greet him. But Anna stood up. Her small feet ran across the marble floor. The guards gasped and stepped forward, but she slipped past them before they could stop her. She stood in front of the tall man, her little hand stretched out with the lollipop. Hello, sir, she said in her clear, innocent voice. Do you want my lollipop? You look sad. Maybe sweet will make you happy. The whole lobby froze. Workers stared, cleaners dropped their mops, and even the guards held their breath. No one had ever spoken to Mr. Adrian like that. No one had ever dared to stand in his way. Adrian stopped walking. His sharp eyes looked down at the small girl. For a long moment, he said nothing. The silence grew heavier, like the whole world was waiting for his reaction. Then something strange happened. His face softened, just a little. His eyes, which always seemed cold, flickered with surprise. Slowly, he bent down to her level. His hand, strong and polished with gold rings, reached out and gently touched the lollipop. Why do you give this to me? He asked in a quiet voice. Anna smiled with all her heart. Because no one gives you anything. Everyone only looks at you. But I think you need a sweet. The words hit him deeper than she could know. For years, he had been surrounded by people who wanted his money, his power, his name. But this little girl, the daughter of a cleaner, gave him something simple. Without asking for anything in return, a sweet candy, a gift from innocence. Mr. Adrian took the lollipop in his hand. For the first time in years, the corner of his lips moved. It was not a full smile, but it was enough to make the workers in the lobby whisper in shock. "Thank you, little one," he said softly. The guards looked at each other, unsure what to do. Daniel rushed forward, his face pale with fear. "Sir, I am sorry, sir. She is just a child. Please forgive her." But Mr. Adrian raised his hand to stop him. His eyes stayed on Anna. "She is brave," he said. "More brave than many grown men I know." With that, he stood up again, holding the small lollipop as if it were something precious. He walked into the elevator, leaving everyone speechless. That moment, the story began to spread through Silver Heights. Workers whispered that the untouchable millionaire had spoken to a child. A child had made him pause. A child had broken his silence, and for the first time, the cold shadow round Mr. Adrian began to change. The next morning, everyone in Silver Heights whispered about the strange scene they had witnessed. The guards told the story to the receptionists told the clerks, and by noon the entire building knew. The millionaire, Mr. Adrian, had accepted a lollipop from a cleaner's daughter. It sounded unbelievable, almost like a dream. The man who rarely looked at anyone had spoken to a child. Some people laughed about it in secret, some shook their heads, and some thought it was only a passing moment. But deep inside, they all felt the same thing. Something had changed. Daniel, Anna's father, felt restless the whole day. He feared his daughter had crossed a dangerous line. When his work ended, he scolded her gently as they walked home. "Anna, you cannot run to that man again. He is not someone like us. He lives in a different world." Anna tilted her head, confused. "But Papa, he looked lonely. No one smiles at him. Why can't I give him candy?" Daniel sighed. He wanted to explain the distance between rich and poor. But how could he destroy her innocent kindness? He only held her hand tighter. "You are a good girl, Anna. But sometimes good hearts can be misunderstood. Promise me you will be careful." Anna nodded, though her eyes still shine with curiosity. Far above them, on the top floor of Silver Heights, Mr. Adrian sat alone in his wide office. The walls were glass, showing the whole city beneath like a sea of lights. On his desk lay papers, contracts, and reports. But his eyes kept drifting toward the small object resting near his pen, the red lollipop. It was such a small thing, yet it felt heavy with meaning. He turned it slowly in his hand, hearing again the little voice saying, "You look sad. Maybe sweet will make you happy." For the first time in many years, Adrian leaned back in his chair and thought about himself. When had he last tasted something so simple? When had he last spoken to someone who expected nothing from him? He had everything: money, buildings, respect, but he did not have what that child carried so easily. Warmth. The following day, when his car stopped at the tower, Adrian stepped out as usual. His guards walked close, and the workers bowed their heads. But his eyes searched the lobby. And there she was. Anna sat near the marble pillar, swinging her legs and waiting for her father. Her school bag lay beside her, and her hair was tied with a blue ribbon. Adrian paused. His steps slowed until he stood not far from her. The lobby filled with silent tension. Everyone expected him to walk straight past, but instead, he stopped and looked up and beamed. "Good morning, sir." The guards stiffened, the workers froze, but Adrian surprised them all. He gave a small nod. "Good morning, Anna." The sound of her name in his deep voice spread across the hall like thunder. People stared, unable to believe the untouchable millionaire not only remembered the child, but also spoke kindly to her. Anna jumped up and ran closer, though the guards moved nervously. She looked up at him with her bright eyes. "Did you eat the lollipop?" Adrian hesitated. He had not eaten it. It still rested on his desk, untouched. But instead of saying no, he answered truthfully, "Not yet. I kept it safe," Anna grinned. "Then tomorrow I will bring another one. You can eat one and keep one." A strange feeling touched Adrian's chest, almost like laughter trying to rise. He simply gave a small nod and entered the elevator. That moment repeated for days, every morning. Anna greeted him. Some days she gave him candy, some days she only waved. At first, the guards and workers watched in shock, but soon it became normal. People started whispering that the child had softened the man of steel. One afternoon, Adrian finished a long meeting and felt his head heavy with numbers and voices. He left his office earlier than usual and walked into the lobby, to everyone's surprise. He stopped near Daniel, who was polishing the floor. Daniel almost dropped his mop in fear. "Sir." "Good evening, sir," he stammered. Adrian's eyes softened. "Your daughter," he said slowly. "She waits here every day." Daniel nodded quickly. "Yes, sir. I bring her after school. She is quiet. She does not disturb anyone. Please forgive her boldness that morning. She did not mean disrespect." Adrian studied the cleaner's tired face. He saw the fear of a man who lived under the shadow of wealth and power. But he also saw something else: pride in his little girl. "She is different," Adrian said at last. "Most people avoid me. She does not." Daniel lowered his head. "She is still young. She does not understand fear." Adrian almost smiled. Perhaps that is why she sees the truth. At that moment, Anna came running from the corner, holding the candies in her small fists. When she saw her father standing with the tall man, she skipped closer. "Papa, I brought for you too. One for you, one for him." She placed one candy in Daniel's rough hand and the other in Adrian's polished palm. Two men from different worlds stood side by side, holding the same simple gift from a child. Something stirred inside Adrian. He looked at Anna and asked, "Why do you share so freely?" Anna tilted her head as if the question was silly. "Because sharing makes the world sweet." The lobby grew silent again. But this silence was not of fear. It was of wonder. People saw something they had never expected: the cold, distant millionaire standing with a cleaner and his daughter, holding candy as if it was treasure. That night, Adrian sat in his wide office again. But instead of staring at his contracts, he looked out at the city lights. For the first time, the tall towers did not make him feel powerful. They made him feel small. He thought of the little girl who had broken the walls around him with nothing but a lollipop and a smile. He whispered softly, almost to himself, "Perhaps life is not only about building towers. Perhaps it is also about sharing sweets." Days turned into weeks, and the story of the millionaire and the cleaner's daughter spread far beyond Silver Heights. At first, it was only the workers inside the building who whispered. Then visitors carried the tale outside, and soon the city of Greenstone began to speak about it. They said the richest man in the country, Mr. Adrian, spoke every morning to a little girl named Anna. They said he accepted candies from her. Some laughed at the thought, others shook their heads, but all agreed it was strange. For years, Mr. Adrian had been known as a man of silence. He rarely gave interviews, rarely smiled, and rarely stayed in the company of anyone. Yet a child had broken through what no one else could. Inside Silver Heights, the atmosphere was no longer the same. Before, the lobby used to feel heavy whenever Adrian passed through. Workers would freeze, afraid to move or speak. But now, people secretly looked forward to seeing Anna's cheerful greetings. Her sweet voice and her fearless kindness softened the air. One morning, as usual, Adrian stepped out of his car. The guards followed, but their faces no longer looked so tense. They had grown used to the little girl who always appeared with her simple gifts. Anna ran forward, holding a bright yellow candy. "Good morning, sir. Today is lemon flavor." Adrian bent slightly, enough for her to place the candy in his hand. "Thank you, Anna. Do you like lemon?" She nodded eagerly. "Yes, it is sour and sweet. Just like life, my teacher says." Adrian's lips curved faintly, and those nearby noticed. For years, they had never seen such an expression on his face. Daniel, standing at a distance, watched with mixed feelings. He loved his daughter's kindness, but he feared that her closeness to such a powerful man might bring trouble. Still, he could not stop her. Anna's heart was too pure to be caged. Later that week, something unusual happened. Adrian's secretary entered his office and found him staring at a small glass jar on his desk. Inside were all the candies Anna had given him. Not one was eaten. Double quotes, sir. May I ask what this is? The secretary said carefully. Adrian did not look away from the jar. It is a reminder, he replied. The secretary was puzzled. A reminder of what, sir? Adrian finally turned, his eyes steady. That even the richest man can be poor, if he has no one who gives without reason. The secretary left in silence, but the story later reached others, adding fuel to the growing whispers in Greenstone. One afternoon, Adrian did something he had never done before. He entered the lobby not surrounded by guards, but alone. People stopped in shock as he walked calmly toward Daniel, who was cleaning near the entrance. Daniel quickly stood up straight, wiping his hands nervously. Good evening, sir. Adrian's eyes moved past him to Anna, who was sitting with her books spread across the floor. May I join your daughter for a moment? He asked. Daniel's mouth fell open. Sir, you want to sit with her? Adrian gave a small nod. Yes. The workers in the lobby almost forgot to breathe as the richest man in the city lowered himself to sit on the polished floor beside a cleaner's daughter. Anna looked up, surprised, then grinned happily. Do you want to see my drawing? She asked, pushing a notebook toward him. Adrian looked at the page. It was a simple sketch of a tall tower with clouds around it. At the bottom, she had drawn a small girl holding a lollipop, smiling up at the tower. Is this Silver Heights? Adrian asked. Yes, Anna said proudly, but it looks too serious. So I added a smile at the bottom, because buildings should also have friends. Her words struck him deeply. For so long, he had built towers, but he had never thought about them needing friends. That evening, as he drove home, Adrian thought about her drawing. When he reached his mansion, filled with grand halls and empty silence, he realized something. His wealth had given him walls of glass and steel, but not the warmth of a child's smile. The next day, instead of walking straight to the elevator, Adrian paused in the lobby. He looked at the workers, at the cleaners, at the receptionists. Then, in a calm voice, he spoke. Good morning. The workers froze. For years, no one had ever heard him greet them. Slowly, they answered back, Good morning, sir. And from that day, the silence of the lobby began to melt. News spread even faster now. The newspapers wrote about it. Reporters wondered what had caused such a change. Some believed Adrian was planning a new image for himself. But those who had seen him with Anna knew the truth. It was the child's innocent kindness that had touched him. One evening, Daniel walked with Anna toward their small home. He finally asked her, Anna, do you know what you have done? She tilted her head. What do you mean, Papa? You changed him, Daniel said softly. A man everyone feared now speaks like a human being again. And it is because of you. Anna only smiled and held her father's hand tighter. I did not change him, Papa. I just gave him candy. Maybe he was waiting for someone to share with him. Daniel's eyes grew moist at her words. He realized his little girl saw the world in a way most adults had forgotten. Meanwhile, in his tall office, Adrian stood by the window watching the city lights. He held the jar of candies close, and for the first time, he did not feel alone at the top. He whispered to himself, a little girl has given me more than all the riches in this city. She has given me back my smile. But deep inside, Adrian also began to feel something new. He wanted to give something back not just to Anna, but to the people who worked in his tower, to the city that had only seen his shadow. For the first time in years, the millionaire began to think not of what he could gain, but of what he could give. The city of Greenstone was slowly changing its opinion about the man they once feared. For years, Mr. Adrian had been known as the silent millionaire, a figure untouchable and cold. But now, new stories were spreading. People said he spoke to the workers in his tower. People said he smiled at a child died. It all began in the lobby of Silver Heights. Before, no one dared to lift their eyes when Adrian passed, but after he started greeting the workers, the atmosphere grew lighter. The receptionist, who once sat frozen at her desk, found herself answering his greetings with a trembling smile. The guards, who once stood stiff and stern, now relaxed a little when he walked by. The reason behind this change was no secret. Everyone knew it was Anna, the cleaner's daughter, who had opened a door no one else could. She greeted him every morning, offered him candies, and spoke to him without fear. Her innocence softened him, and through him, it softened the air of the entire building. One bright morning, Adrian arrived earlier than usual. As his car stopped at the entrance, people expected him to rush to the elevator. Instead, he paused in the middle of the lobby. His deep voice carried through the hall. "Good morning, everyone." Dozens of heads lifted in surprise. The cleaners, the clerks, the guards. Even the visitors all answered back, "Good morning, sir." Anna clapped her hands happily. "See, sir, it feels nice when everyone says good morning." Adrian gave a small nod. "Yes, Anna, it feels nice indeed." From that day, the workers no longer feared the mornings. They began to look forward to his arrival. Even a single nod from him gave them courage. But Adrian did not stop there. He began to notice things he had ignored for years. He saw the cleaners working late into the night, their hands rough and tired. He saw the guards standing long hours, never complaining. He saw the receptionists smiling politely even when they were exhausted. For the first time, he looked at them not as shadows in his tower, but as people with lives, struggles, and families. One evening, he called his secretary. "Make a list of all the workers in this building," Adrian said. "All of them." "Sir?" the secretary asked, surprised. "Yes, cleaners, guards, receptionists, clerks, every single person." When the list was ready, Adrian signed papers that no one expected. The cleaners received new uniforms and better pay. The guards were given more rest hours. The receptionists were offered health benefits. It was as if a wave of kindness had swept through Silver Heights when the news reached the workers. Many cried in joy. They had served silently for years without expecting anything in return. And now, suddenly, their lives were lighter. "Why is he doing this?" one worker asked another. The answer was simple: because of Anna. Meanwhile, Anna herself did not see anything unusual in what was happening. To her, Adrian was just the man with the black car who now smiled sometimes. She continued giving him candies every morning, never knowing how her small kindness had started a chain reaction. One afternoon, as Adrian walked through the lobby, he noticed Anna drawing again. She was sitting cross-legged on the floor, her notebook open. "What are you drawing today?" he asked, lowering himself beside her. Anna held up the page. This time she had drawn the Silver Heights building again, but around it were little stick figures of cleaners, guards, and workers, all smiling together. At the top, she had drawn the tall man in a suit, standing not apart but among them. Adrian studied the drawing. "And who is this tall man?" Anna giggled. "That is you, of course. But I made you smile this time." Something warm stirred in his chest. He had lived his whole life chasing success. Yet this little girl saw him not as a millionaire, but simply as a man who could smile. That evening, as he sat in his grand office, Adrian thought of her words. For the first time, he questioned himself deeply. Was wealth only about owning more, or was it also about lifting others? The next morning, he asked his driver to stop the car before reaching the tower. He wanted to walk the last street by himself. People on the road gasped when they saw him. Some whispered, some bowed, but Adrian only nodded politely. It was the first time in years he had walked among ordinary people. When he entered Silver Heights on foot, the workers looked at each other in disbelief. Anna ran to him at once. "Sir, you came walking today." "Yes," Adrian said. "I wanted to see the city as it really is, not from behind glass." Anna thought for a moment, then smiled. "It feels better when you walk with people, right?" Adrian looked around. At the workers, the clerks, the cleaners, all watching him with hopeful eyes. "Yes," he said quietly, "much better." The whispers of the city grew louder. Newspapers began to write about the change in the millionaire. Headlines called him the man who smiled again. People who once feared him now spoke with respect mixed with curiosity. But for Adrian, it was not the city's opinion that mattered. It was the small girl who had taught him that a lollipop could carry more power than all the gold in the world. One evening, as Daniel prepared to leave, Adrian called him aside. "Your daughter has given me something I had lost," Adrian said. "Because of her, I see the world differently. You should be proud." Daniel lowered his eyes. "I am proud, sir, but I still worry. She is just a child. I do not want her to be a burden to you." Adrian shook his head. "She is no burden. She is a gift." Daniel's eyes grew moist at those words. He realized that the richest man in the city had found something in his daughter that no money could buy. That night, Adrian stood once again at the top of his tower, looking at the city lights. But this time, he did not feel alone. For the first time in many years, he felt connected to the people below. And all because a little girl dared to speak to him when no one else would. The city of Greenstone was watching. For the first time in many years, the people saw a different side of Mr. Adrian. The man who once hid behind dark windows in cold silence now greeted his workers, spoke kindly, and even smiled at a child. In the lobby. At first, many believed it was just a short change, something that would fade away. But weeks passed, and the change only grew stronger. Silver Heights was no longer a place of fear, but a place of warmth. The cleaners laughed while working, the guards stood proudly, and the clerks carried new hope in their hearts, all because of a little girl named Anna. Adrian himself began to see the world differently. Each day he looked at Anna's drawings, her candies, and her fearless smile, and he realized something. The wealth he had gathered in his towers and banks was heavy, but the small gifts from a child were light and pure. He wanted to share that light with others. One morning, instead of walking straight to the elevator, Adrian stopped in the lobby. His deep voice carried across the hall. "Gather everyone here after work. I have something to say." The workers looked at each other in shock. Never before had the millionaire asked to speak to all of them. That evening, as the sun lowered, and the glass walls of Silver Heights glowed with orange light, the workers gathered in the lobby. Cleaners, guards, clerks, receptionists, everyone stood waiting. Anna sat at the front with Daniel. Her eyes wide with curiosity, Adrian stepped forward, his tall figure commanding attention. But his face was not cold. It was calm, almost gentle. "For many years," he began, "I have lived in silence. I thought building towers and owning wealth was enough, but I see now that I was wrong." The workers listened, holding their breath. He continued, "It was a child who opened my eyes. She gave me candy without asking for anything. She gave without fear, without expectation. She reminded me of something I had forgotten. That true wealth is not in what we keep, but in what we give." Anna's face lit up with a proud smile. Though she did not fully understand the weight of his words, Adrian looked around the room, his voice steady. "From this day forward, I promise this building will not only shine on the outside, but also on the inside. Every worker here will be treated with respect. You will not be shadows in my tower. You will be its heart." A wave of emotion swept through the crowd. Some workers wiped tears, others whispered in disbelief. They had never imagined the cold millionaire would stand before them and speak such words. Daniel's hands trembled as he held Anna close. He whispered to her, "Do you know what you have done? My child, you have softened a stone." Adrian raised his hand, and the hall fell silent again. "This is only the beginning. Tomorrow, I will announce new projects that will not just serve me, but serve the city. Greenstone has given me much. It is time I give back." The workers broke into applause. The sound echoed through the tall glass lobby like a song of hope. The next day, the newspapers carried bold headlines. "Millionaire promises change," they wrote. People across Greenstone began to talk, not of his silence, but of his kindness. Some doubted, some believed, but all were curious. In the weeks that followed, Adrian started projects that touched lives. He ordered the building of free schools in poor neighborhoods. He supported hospitals with new equipment. He opened community centers where children could learn and play safely. Everywhere, people asked the same question. Why? Why had the richest man in the country suddenly chosen to give so much? The answer was whispered in the halls of Silver Heights, because of Anna. Meanwhile, Adrian's bond with Anna grew stronger. Each morning, she continued to give him candies, and each evening he kept them safe in the jar on his desk. But more than the candies, he cherished her words. One morning, she ran up to him with a bright smile. "Sir, today I don't have candy. I have something else." Adrian raised an eyebrow. "And what is that?" Anna pulled out a small paper folded carefully. On it was another drawing. This time she had drawn him, not in a suit, not standing alone, but sitting at a table with workers, sharing food. Above the picture she had written in her shaky letters, "Everyone can be friends." Adrian stared at the drawing for a long time. His heart, once heavy with suspicion and pride, now felt light. He bent down and said, "Anna, this is more precious than all the paintings in my house." She giggled. "It's free, sir. You don't need to buy it." Daniel, standing nearby, shook his head in wonder. He could not believe how far things had come. His daughter, a simple child, had become the reason the richest man in the city was changing not only himself, but the lives of thousands. But while many people welcomed the change, not everyone was pleased. Some powerful businessmen in Greenstone began to frown. They had always admired Adrian for his coldness, his strength, his control. Now they whispered that he was becoming weak. They feared his kindness would shift the balance of power. "Charity does not suit a man like him," one rival said at a gathering. "He is lowering himself," said another. But the people of the city thought differently. To them, Adrian was no longer just a man of steel. He was a man with a heart. One evening, Adrian walked with Anna and Daniel outside the tower. The air was cool, and the streetlights glowed softly. Adrian looked down at Anna and asked, "Tell me, little one, why do you always give me something?" "Candy, drawings, smiles." "Why?" Anna thought for a moment, then answered simply, "Because everyone needs a friend. Even you." Her words pierced him deeper than any speech or book could. He realized that for all his wealth, for all his towers, he had lived without something so simple. A friend. Adrian looked at her with gentle eyes. "Then I promise you, Anna, I will be a friend to many. I will not live only for myself anymore." Anna clapped her hands. "That's good, because sharing makes the world sweet." Daniel watched silently, his heart swelling with pride and gratitude. He knew his daughter's kindness had done something no money or power could ever do. And as they stood together under the city lights, Adrian made a silent vow. He would keep his promise not just for the city, not just for his workers, but for the little girl who had shown him that even the coldest man could learn to smile again. The people of Greenstone were seeing a new world. Schools were opening, hospitals were improving, and poor families were receiving help they never dreamed of. Everywhere, people spoke about the great change in Mr. Adrian, the millionaire who once walked in silence but now spoke with kindness. For the workers of Silver Heights, life was brighter than ever. Their pay had increased, their working hours were fairer, and their voices were heard. And at the center of it all was a little girl, named Anna, the child who had first dared to speak to the man no one else dared approach. But not everyone was happy. In the tall glass offices across the city, powerful men gathered in secret meetings. These were Adrian's rivals, businessmen who thrived on greed and control. They had always respected Adrian when he was cold and distant, but now they whispered in anger. He was feared before. That fear kept balance in the city, one man said. Now he is giving everything away. People will expect the same from us, another complained. This kindness will destroy his power, a third declared. While the people celebrated Adrian's generosity, his rivals planned to turn the tide. They wanted to show the city that kindness was weakness. Stopped back inside Silver Heights. Adrian was unaware of the whispers against him. He spent his mornings as usual, greeting Anna in the lobby, She always had something for him, whether a candy, a flower, or a drawing. Each time, his heart felt lighter. One morning, she gave him a small handmade card. On the front, she had written in large, shaky letters, "Thank you for being kind." Adrian bent down and asked, "Why do you thank me, Anna?" "Because you make people smile," she replied. When people smile, they feel strong. Her words stayed with him all day. He realized that his projects were not only about giving money or help. They were about giving people hope. That evening, as Adrian walked out of his office, Daniel approached him nervously. "Sir, may I speak?" Daniel asked. "Of course," Adrian said. Daniel hesitated, then continued. "I am grateful for all you have done. My daughter is happy, and the workers are blessed. But I fear something." "What is it?" Adrian asked. Daniel lowered his voice. "Not everyone will accept this change. There are men in this city who want power, not kindness. They may see your new ways as weakness." Adrian listened carefully. He knew Daniel spoke the truth, but he also knew that living in silence had not brought him peace. "You are right," Adrian said at last, "but I will not turn back. If they wish to see kindness as weakness, let them. I know it is strength." Daniel bowed his head respectfully. "Then may God protect you, sir, because you are not only carrying your own life now, you are carrying the hopes of many." Days later, Adrian's rivals made their first move. A newspaper appeared with bold letters across the front page. "Is the millionaire losing his edge?" The article painted him as soft, distracted, and careless. It claimed his new projects were only to gain attention, not true kindness. Some even mocked him, saying he takes advice from a child. When the workers of Silver Heights read the paper, they were angry, but Adrian only looked at it calmly. "Let them speak," he said. "I know the truth, and the people who see my work will know it too." Still, doubts began to rise among some in the city. They wondered if perhaps the rivals were right. Could a man who once ruled with silence really change so much? Was it safe to trust him? Through it all, Anna never changed. One morning, when Adrian arrived looking thoughtful, she skipped up to him with a bright blue candy. "Here, sir," she said. "Blue makes sadness go away." Adrian bent down, taking the candy, and asked softly, "Anna, do you believe in me?" She looked up without hesitation. "Of course, you are my friend." Those words filled him with strength. For the first time, Adrian realized that friendship could be stronger than fear. The rivals, however, were not finished. They spread rumors that Adrian's projects would soon fail, that his schools were poorly planned, and that his gifts to the poor would run out. They hoped to turn the people against him, but something unexpected happened. The people of Greenstone remembered the small changes in their own lives. They remembered the schools, the hospitals, the new respect given to workers. Slowly, they began to defend Adrian. "He gave my son a chance to study," one mother said. "He repaired our broken clinic." A father added, "He treated us like humans, not shadows," said a worker. The voices of the people rose higher than the voices of his rivals, and at the heart of it all, Anna continued to remind him of his path. One evening, as the sun set over the city, Adrian sat with Daniel and Anna on a bench outside the tower. The street was busy, but for a moment it felt quiet. "Anna," Adrian said, "you have given me something more powerful than money. You have given me courage. Even when others doubt me, your smile reminds me that I am not alone." Anna grinned. "That's because you are not alone. You have Papa, you have me, and now you have the whole city." Daniel smiled proudly at his daughter. He knew her innocent heart had touched a man the world once feared. Adrian looked out at the lights of Greenstone, his mind firm. "Let them call me weak. Let them doubt me. I will not stop, because one child taught me that even the coldest tower can shine with warmth." And with that, he prepared himself for what was coming. The shadows of doubt were growing, but so was the light of hope. The city of Greenstone was alive with whispers. Some whispered of hope, others of doubt, and a few of anger. The rivals of Adrian had spread their lies across newspapers, radios, and meetings. They wanted the people to turn against the man who was changing everything. Yet the streets still told another story. Children carried books from the new schools. Families walked freely in safe parks. Workers returned home with food on their tables for them. Adrian was not a cold figure in a high tower anymore. He was a man who cared, but the rivals were not. Satisfied, they wanted to strike a final blow. They gathered in a private hall and planned carefully. Their leader, a man named Mr. Steele, spoke with a sharp voice. This city once respected Adrian because he was silent and feared. Now he plays the hero. If we let him continue, people will demand the same from us. We must end his influence once and for all. Their plan was simple. They would host a grand business meeting with important leaders and officials. There, they would attack Adrian with questions, mock his projects, and present false reports. They hoped to humiliate him in front of the city's eyes. When the news of the meeting spread, Daniel worried. He went to Adrian's office late one evening. "Sir, they want to shame you," Daniel said quietly. "They will not play fair. Maybe it is better not to attend." Adrian looked out of his tall window at the city lights. He remembered the cold years when he walked through life alone, when no voice called his name, when fear was his only companion. Then he remembered Anna, her smile, and the simple lollipop that had broken his silence. "No," Adrian said firmly. "I must go. Not for myself, for the people who believe in me, for Anna, for you. If I hide now, everything will be lost." Daniel sighed, but he understood. The next day, the meeting hall was filled with powerful men, wealthy women, and the city's reporters. The air was tense. Adrian entered calmly, dressed in his usual black suit. The room grew silent, but not out of fear like before. This silence was different. It was filled with curiosity and expectation. Steele stood and smiled coldly. "Welcome, Adrian. We are here to discuss the future of Greenstone. Perhaps you can explain why you waste millions on poor schools and broken hospitals. What do you gain?" The room chuckled softly at the word waste. All eyes turned to Adrian. He rose slowly and spoke in a steady voice. "What I gain is not counted in coins. It is counted in lives. A child who studies is not a waste. A sick man healed is not a waste. A worker treated with respect is not a waste. That is my gain." Murmurs filled the hall. Some nodded quietly, but Steele slammed the table. "You speak of dreams, but dreams cannot feed a city. You will destroy yourself and those who follow you." Adrian looked at him and replied, "It is greed, not kindness, that destroys. For years, this city was built on fear. I was part of that. I regret it, but I have seen a better way. If that makes me weak, then I accept weakness, because in truth, it is the strongest path." Reporters scribbled quickly. Steele grew angry. He held up papers and shouted, "Your projects are false. Your numbers are lies. We have proof that your schools are failures." Just then, a voice came from the back of the hall. "That is not true." The crowd turned. Daniel stood there, holding his daughter's hand. Anna clutched a small basket filled with lollipops. Though her feet were small, her voice was clear. "My school is not a failure," Anna said bravely. "I can read better now. I can count better now, and I can smile because of him." Gasps filled the hall. Steele frowned. "And who is this child?" Adrian walked down the stage, knelt beside Anna, and said, "This is Anna, the girl who first dared to speak to me when no one else would. She gave me a lollipop and reminded me that kindness is worth more than gold." Anna held out a red lollipop to the crowd. "He is my friend," she said. "He helps everyone. If you say he is weak, then I think weak is good." The hall grew silent. Even the reporters stopped writing for a moment. The innocence in her words struck deeper than any speech. Slowly, applause began. At first, it was soft. Then it grew louder, spreading across the hall. Workers, teachers, and citizens who had been invited clapped with pride. They stood for Adrian, not because he was rich, but because he was true. Steele's face turned pale. He realized their plan had failed. The people were no longer afraid. They had seen the truth with their own eyes and heard it from the mouth of a child. That night, newspapers across the city carried a new headline, "The Millionaire Who Chose Kindness." From that day forward, Adrian's rivals lost their grip. Their voices grew weaker, while Adrian's influence grew stronger, not because of power or wealth, but because of trust. Weeks later, as the sun rose over Greenstone, Adrian walked out of Silver Heights with Daniel and Anna. The workers greeted him with warm smiles, children waved at him, families called his name. Adrian turned to Anna and said, "You have changed me more than anyone else. You gave me courage to face the world. How can I ever thank you?" Anna thought for a moment and then handed him another lollipop, this time yellow. "Just promise to never stop being kind." Adrian smiled. "That is a promise I will keep for the rest of my life." As they walked together, the city no longer saw Adrian as the distant millionaire. They saw him as a man reborn, carrying hope in every step. And it all began with a little girl, a simple gift, and the courage to speak when no one else dared.